Hello and welcome to this new video in the Redrawing Tintin series. I'm Chris and this is one of those synced stories comics drawing videos. And we are in part 11 now. We're trying to we have accomplished refined sketches here, so everything you see in blue is on the refined sort of version of it. The red one, as you may remember, was the beginning sketch, but then the blue is the middle stage before we actually ink. So we now have corrected the red lines into blue lines here. But we have a little bit more to go, even though there is blue everywhere here. So what I'm talking about here is that it's these anger lines or anger effects here around Professor Calculus that we have to look at those, because we were doing them before we added the balloon tail, and we shouldn't have added the balloon tail so late. We should have waited with the anger effects until after I added the balloon tail. So now we have to correct the anger lines once more. So good comics production, or efficient comics production, is very dependent on what you do first and what you do after that, and so you get the order right. So I think I'm, like, for myself as well, to just really give me an insight myself here how important it is and how many hours of time we can spare if we just keep the workflow in the right order. So we have to establish a correct workflow. Alright, so we are going to create a new layer here, and the last thing we did were some corrections on Tintin, I think. And we will create a new layer with Control G here, and we will say anger lines or something like that, anger effects. And we are now in part 11. And maybe even we should do those in a different color, or no, we're going to actually, let's do it like this. Let's see, we were doing those in where were those anger lines? What are those there? Okay, but where is calculus? That's the hand. I'm pressing Alt key and I'm clicking on the visibility button just to look for where is the layer where calculus is hiding the other calculus, because there are two. It seems that there are two calculuses. So I have one refined there, but if I remove that one, okay, right, so then that one must be above or below, sorry. So probably there's, well, it can't be in there, it can't be in there, it can't be in there. Why is it that if I remove this one, nothing happens? Okay, so we have everything visible there. Okay, let's, oh, right. Let's remove that one. And then we'll see where it is. Did I do a merge as well? Right, I did it for the YouTube thumbnails in the previous. That's correct. Okay, so that's the culprit. Okay, so we have the merged angle lines, the blue layer there, and then I will keep Alt down and drag the whole layer up like that. I will go back down again and remove that one. I will say copy, and I will say 20% opacity. So I will now do 20% opacity on that one, and then I will create a new layer on top and start fixing the, let's see, where are you, calculus? There it is. Okay, angle lines refined 2. Okay, so now, but now it's not the whole of calculus, it's just the angle lines. So we will redo the angle lines only, and then we will erase the angle lines, the old angle lines. Right. So time for drawing and multiply as usual. And we're going to go up at 300% to see more. I'm going to, as usual, I have to my left here the original panel by Hergé. But before we go on, I'm just going to quick reminder here about my own comic book project, which is 987 degrees centigrade, which I am working on right now, which is a science fiction action thriller adventure. And it is our hero Barry Riley that we are seeing here on in the bottom right corner. And this Unlimited Danger series is divided into seasons, and season 1 will be 8 volumes, 8 books, which all are continuing. So it's a sort of like an ongoing story, and these 8 are the ones. So 987 degrees centigrade, which you can start looking out for in a few months. Okay, let's go back to our drawing now, and so we are looking at the angle lines. I'm going to select blue, and I'm painting with 20%, and I think the easiest way we do this is we start with this side here to the left, which should be less problematic since we already had the panel frame, so now it's only a matter of looking at the angles more or less, and the force line thickness. I'm having my brush, and I'm having that, and I'm having my angle lines. Oh, okay, so I put, yeah, right, so I copied that, so this whole layer is 20%. Okay, we don't want that. Okay, so now let's just redo that, so we get the right, so we can properly see what we're doing. Okay, so we're starting up in the left hand corner, and we're going gradually down, and this line is a little wavy. It's getting thicker to the right here, because here most probably Auger was adding ink when he turned his pen here, whether that was a fountain pen or a dip pen with a steel nib of some kind. I saw something about that on the internet as well, that there was some testimony, or there was some information about some place in London where, I think it was near Russell Street, there was an art shop there, or art supplies shop, or pen shop, or something like that, that had the brand or similar brands that to those used by Auger. Because the idea was that, I think some is okay. So this line is a little thicker above here also. The idea was that, well, there was a person in the thread that I was reading that claimed that the nibs nowadays that you use in those dip pens, which have like a handle where you insert the nib, and then you can take it out and put another nib in, like that. That the usual nibs nowadays are not the ones that was used in the 40s and 50s and 60s, and that especially in Europe, I think that was the idea, that in Europe it's harder to find good nibs that actually make beautiful lines. So I think the consensus of that thread was that in order to achieve good results, you would have to try to locate those good nibs, and that art supplies, or that pen store near Russell Street in London, had some kind of special sets with like old nibs that they had collected, and then they resold them in sets or something. It was something like that. So I can't remember the name of the shop though, but if you live near Russell Street, or you have some business there, you may want to just look around to see if you can find it. But I think even so, if you search on Google for LJ and Dip Pen and Russell Street, then maybe you can locate that info once more. But it's I think it's very important, the whole thing, that if you want to recreate the old some aspects of the olden style, the tools are critical, I think. And this line has to go a little more out here, closer to the panel border, and it has to be, have to remove a little here in the, because this top line here must be approximately parallel to the other one, to the lower line. And in the original, this looks like a Z, like a Zorro's mark or something. I don't know, I remember, wasn't there a Zorro with this, what is this, Spanish actor or Mexican actor? What is it? Pandera. What is his name? I don't remember. But he also did some dance videos on about training young people to dance. Okay, angle lines, R2. So we have these lines now, and the angle here should be something like that, so they should all both end something like that. And also over here, maybe this line should be somewhat longer here, but the top stroke should be slightly shorter than the bottom one. And but the bottom stroke should have like a curvature at the end, convex top there, so to speak. Okay, so we have those two under our belt, and then we have this third one here, which to me seems a little mysterious. A little mysterious because it seems as if the hair on Professor Calculus must be bigger. Than it is. This section has to be longer. But if this section is longer, then the hair will come closer to the panel border than in the original. So that leaves us the question, okay, so what we could do then is try to look at this. So maybe it is that the length, or the width of his head up here is too big. So I'm going to measure this with a ruler now, and the distance from here up here, if we go parallel to the hair here, I have 18 centimeters, and I'm doing this on the other screen now, the same measurement, and I get something like 17.7 or something like that. So actually we're pretty good off. But maybe it's just, okay, maybe that. Maybe it is just that we have placed Professor Calculus, because that could really explain it. Yes, I think we have placed Professor Calculus a little bit too close to the left border. I think that's it. That's it. So then what we will do is so then what we will do is here, Calculus refined 2. Okay, not uppercase, we don't need that. Calculus R2 port 11, video 11, and then I'm putting it in there instead, and then I am, so let's see if we can do this nicely now. So what I want to adjust now is I'm returning to 100% with I have my F8 key programmed to 100%, and then I have my 50% key is F7, right? So F7 and F8, I can always use these quickly to 50%, 100%, 50%, 100%. I don't have to go in here in the opacity entering field here and both type a value and then press return. It's not productive, so I have this as a, so I don't have to mess around with that time-consuming entry field. Alright, so now I'm back at 100%, and then I remove this, and then I want to move, let's say first I will erase angle marks. Because we have another copy there where I'm only having the, so I will, so let's go solo on him, and I will take my pencil tool with white, and I will increase my brush here with my quick commands. I have bigger brush and smaller brush on my comma and my point keys. Like that. So now we have removed those. Okay, and now I press enter and click again to get back my other layers, and then I hide it, and I go back to my old, so to speak, calculus layer. Alright, and now I still use, but now I erase Calculus himself, so we have our old, whoops, let's see, we have our old refined angle lines still visible, and then we will of course also have the second revision of those. We will get back to that work in a minute after we have moved Professor Calculus. Like that. So now we have them there, and we are reinstating all the other layers, and we are erase angle marks, and okay, so let's call that then R2 then there. And here we have angle lines R1 there, and we put the angle lines back up in the angle lines R2, revision 2, or refined 2 actually, but revision 2 of the blue lines. Okay, we erased the angle marks, and so here is the, so moved right, like Calculus R2, moved right, So now we actually have to move him right. But when we move him right, we notice that the position of the balloon must be somewhat different. And that is now the tricky part. If we have to move him right, so then the question is it perhaps the case that Tintin is placed, in my version, is he placed too far to the right or to the left? So we have to go back here to see if this is the case. Is Tintin placed too much to the right, to the left? Yes, he is. So there is a little adjustment there. And then when we do that, then we will get the space that we need. So that means that we can move everything to the right, which simplifies the whole procedure. So let's say we do we do maybe 3 pixels to the right or something. It's still, there is still some discrepancy, but I think that's at least better. Then we will have better okay, yep. So, but then that would mean that okay, so that would mean that we have, so the question now is that I'm thinking about is that if we are to move all these components to the right, all of them in one shot, so to speak, how do we do that? How do we do that in terms of the layers? Are we going to move those layers that we already have visible, or are we making new copies? And the answer is new copies. So first, before we move anything, we want to, so we have this one here, moved right, Calculus himself. And the angle lines we are not going to move, at least not yet. So let those be there for now. And okay, so that's him. And then we have the balloon tail. Okay, where are we going to do that? Should we do balloon tail up here perhaps? Okay, let's do that. Oh, whoops. I'll just say tail here. Tail R2. port 11. Okay, and then we just balloon tail, just rename it here also as well. So tail R, okay, then we keep Alt down and we drag a copy up into the tail R2, tail R2, moved, and I haven't moved it yet, but I'm just preparing to move, and I'm removing that. And then what else we want Tintin himself, and we want a hand as well, of course. Okay, so we do another one for the hand. Let's see, angle lines, calculus, Tintin R2, he is there, but that's in port 10. Okay, so then we do an, oh no, I shouldn't have done that, so I should just copy the layer. Okay, Tintin, we have to call this R3 then, port 11. Okay, so then we copy that layer and we rename it R3, moved, and we hide that one. And then the sweat drops should also follow along. Tintin R3, sweat drops, R2, port 11, sweat drops, I'm copying that, Alt down and dragging up, R2, and moved like that. We can hide that, and then we just have the hand Tintin. Should we put that under there, or let's put the hand over here. Hand R2, port 11. Alt down and moved. Okay, so now I have all my layers that we have, and the sweat we already did, I hope. Sweat R2, yes, good. And that's hidden also. Okay, so now we're only working up here in port 11, and so I'm now hitting the V key for the move tool, and I'm just going to check that I have everything Well, let's see by doing it instead. So control down, and I'm clicking on the layers that says moved. So it's the, okay, so let's go through the calculus. It's the sweat, it's Tintin, it's the hand, and then we want the balloon tail. Which is up here. And now V for the move tool, and I'm moving it, everything 3 pixels maybe, or as I said, something like that. 4 maybe. And that, of course, so then the dimensions that we were, the proportions here that we were determining in a previous video, they still work, because we moved everything, both Tintin and the balloon tail and Professor Calculus at the same time, and also the interrelationships between the hand and the face of Tintin here, and like that. So what we didn't do, or what we didn't count on, was the again the angle lines. And still it's the problem that since we now moved it, we have to redo them, but in doing so we also discover, or we refine the proportions even there, like so we are getting closer and closer to a better approximation. Okay, so now when that is done, let's now go to the angle lines again. And we're going to look at, we're going to go back to 300%, and I'm now increasing my scale here on the original Tintin, the printed comic book, and I am trying to go up here also as well in my own drawing. And we're going to look at this again, and we're now going to see that this second line here, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the M on the keyboard here for the marquee tool, and I'm going to copy and paste that, and I'm going to bring it down a little, because the distance to his hair is actually a little different. So this Zorro arrow should be something like that. And it's also important that it should be approximately even a little bit closer perhaps. But there should be a slight up angle. It should be perhaps 5 degrees above the horizontal line here, maybe. I'm not sure, 3 degrees perhaps or something. But a slight tilt here, upwards. And then here should be a slight tilt downwards, approximately as it is now. So I think that's good, and the distance here to his head is now almost perfect, I think. But this line up here needs correction, so I'm going to go back. So this is, if I count them clockwise, this is 1, 2. Maybe we should call this left side. So left 1. Maybe we should count downwards. It's more natural, I think. So 1, 2, 3, left 1, 2, 3, 4, and then right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So when we now are adjusting them, that way we can adjust them separately. Okay, so this was left 2. Okay, and then we will cut out left 1. And put it there. And we will move it a little bit so that we can, it has to be closer to Professor Calculus, and the left side is going to be a little longer, it seems, and the right side as well, and there should be a little more thickness there. Little more, something like that. And now a V for the move tool, and I move it back 1 pixel or so, something, and it's pretty good. Maybe even the angle there also, maybe the angle should be different there. It should be more up here. Then it should go down, and the not so thick here. But the thickness returns here. Okay, so basically this one is longer than this one, or at least feels that way because it's thicker. It's overall thicker than this one. This is also somewhat thick, and it should be thicker here, but still it's not the total area, if I can say, the total impression of the line is that I think there's 10% more blue in this than there is in this. Okay, so I think that works well. And also what we have to remind ourselves here is that the hair should also have some, it's like a curly version of this, so we have to add that as well. But we can do that in the inking, I think. This should be pretty. We can ink in several stages if we want that. So, and then here comes this strange thing here with this line, with the third one here. So I'm just going to, so if we start with, I'm going to do something like that. And this goes quite close to the hair, and actually the hair will stick out even more when we ink, so maybe we will have to adjust that in the ink later on. But so this will be difficult here, because there seems to be some, there's something, because this is quite long. Aha, I see how he does it now. Okay, so he I think he puts it a little longer down there, and then his hair here is curly, so he sort of times, he synchronizes it so that one of the, I don't know what to say, one of the balls of the curls, one of the curls, is there's some distance here. I'll explain this later on. But okay, so the line actually goes, so he goes well into the hair. If the actual top to, how should I say, if the actual outline of the hair with the curls added onto it, if it goes out here, then it goes in the line here, so it goes inside that line. But because of this curvature here, and because of the curls themselves, he seems to find a spot where there still is enough white around it. I wouldn't have come so close in my own comics. I mean, I think he's too close, but that's his stylistic sort of sensibility that sort of has. So I'm just replicating what I see. I'm not. Okay, so this is a good opportunity to discover and sort of evaluate, or how should I say, how to define our own taste if we are comic book creators. Of course, you can just read Tintin without being a comic book creator. That's totally. But if you are a comic book creator, then you can use Tintin to sort of find your own preferences. It's actually a little bit scientific, because that's what they're doing in academic journals all along. They publish one article, and then, let's say a professor in Arizona is doing something, and he publishes that, and then 6 months later, then a guy in Sydney, Australia, he comes along and says that, oh, well, your ideas were great, it's just that blah 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 something. So then sort of the original article triggered something into the mind of the professor in Sydney, and sort of helped him to formulate a new theory or formulate his own desires. So I think we can use, so if we are comic book creators, we can use Tintin in that way also, that we not only are we enjoying reading the stories themselves and the characters themselves, but we can find our own style by sort of looking closely at what Hergé has been doing. So when I say that, so this has something to do with what I just said, that I personally would never do these like thunderbolts anger lines. I would never do them this close to the hair or to the balloon panel, like frame, or to the balloon itself. I'm sorry, the panel frame to the left and the balloon up there. I would never just go this close. So you sort of we can identify our own desires or preferences by looking at these details like this, in bigger scale and in more detail. So that's another benefit of this exercise. Okay, so we have the third line, and I will erase a little bit there. I will extend it a little bit to the left again. So the distance to the panel frame is about slightly more than one of these thicknesses here. It's basically a panel frame, panel border here before the angle line starts. Okay, so that's, and maybe we should just for further reference later on, I'm cutting this out as well, and we are renaming this to L3, and now I have to, since I cut it out instead of copying it, I have to reposition it with, but that's alright. Actually moves down a little bit here. I think the first thing we will do later on then, at least with Professor Calculus, is to do his hair, like the curls, so we can know exactly where to put this angle line here. But it goes approximately like this. That's number 3, and now let's do number 4. But I will take a small break. I'll be back just in a second. Alright, so let's continue here. We are at the 4th angle line here, and we use blue and we use 20% on the brush. And I think basically the angle here is pretty good in the old stuff here. And the length feels pretty good as well. So we will use this. Angle looks good. And this line here should only be approximately like 60% of the panel frame. And here then when he turns his pen, the more thicker lines here appear, and these are thicker than the panel frame, slightly thicker than the panel frame. And then comes a sort of like half bent line, which is thicker than the first but thinner than the other line, and then sort of a bent this way, slight curve to this way here. More like that, I think. But this continues here, so there's okay, and this stroke here is not as long here, so it should be starting here somewhere. And this is pretty it sort of points up to this curvature inside his ear here. This roundish shape here sort of points up there, and it should be a little longer. So I guess we are, although this angle here should be corrected a little bit, okay, and we are okay, is also if we remove that bottom layer there. But let's do like this, that we also put this into a separate layer. So it's holding shift now to combine the two, combine the selection, and then I'll do an L4 here. And then I go back to this document, go solo, and I'm going to just paint white here everywhere. Well, we can actually remove this now, or we can just use it as a temporary. Yeah, I think that's better. We just use it as a temporary. Okay, now the left side is done. And let's just look at it again to see. maybe this one is a little too long. L1 is a little too long. That is one of the most useful things about when you're where is L1? L1 is there on white. Okay, so why don't I erase? Oh, I do erase. Okay, I see. But I only have 20% opacity on the white, so that's why it took some time to see. Okay, so that's good. Then L2, there is something from the angle lines that is L2, L3, L4. Okay. So now let's go back and do the right hand side of the angle lines. And here we are totally off. Or not actually totally off. Some of these are good, some of these are not. So let's use the good ones first to copy, and then we can. So we make angle lines visible again. R2, of course. Brush. I think this one is the best one. In terms of angle, in terms of position, this is almost right. And this angle here goes quite back there, backwards, and it's also thick, so thicker than the panel frame. Something like that, and then comes a stroke like that. And it goes, it's not parallel to this thunderbolt partition here. It's a little other angle, so when it goes down there. But it ends approximately there. Maybe it's a little shorter, but it's something like that. And then we have, so let's cut that out while let's copy it and so we have R2 then. Now it's right. Let's spell that out so we don't get confused. Okay. And we go solo on that one, and we just remove that. So we can continue here, and we can make, I think it's a good idea to make this first one here now. So I am. So now this one here points up in approximately this angle here, but it's closer to, it sort of starts 1.5 thicknesses away here or something. 1.3 thicknesses away. And then it goes up. It goes down. And then it goes up again. And it ends. Okay, so maybe we have to do this. And it's quite thick. This part is quite thick. It's just as thick as this stroke here. And it's actually pretty much the balloon thickness here. And this stroke is a little longer. And we should reposition the whole balloon, actually, or the whole anger stroke. And this must be shorter as well here. Okay, I'm making it 100% so it gets a little quicker. And maybe this angle down here isn't as. Ah, okay, I see now what I'm doing here. So it should start earlier here. And then we should shave off from this side here. That's more like it. Perhaps a little more roundish on this side here. But otherwise, and then the angle is a little different there. Perhaps also actually the angle here also is, it goes up a little more. So I guess we'll have to adjust a little there too. And it is a little bit thicker as well. So we get the approximate feeling there. We'll do that a little less long there, and a little longer up here. Right. And then I'll take that copy paste, and I copy the layer name and just exchange the 2 for a 1. And then I go back to that, I go solo, and I just erase that so we can do number 3. So far, very good. And then we can do a check later on. And then we have, in terms of the angles and everything, we sort of we iterate around, and we leave one thunderbolt, and then we come back to it later on, and we fine adjust it, and to get the whole panel working, so to speak. It's like an orchestra, isn't it? I mean, all these small pieces are instruments, and they have to combine together in a particular way to get that special crescendo or diminuendo or whatever movement that's going on. Okay, so then we do number 3 here. We are back at the drawing layer here, and I see now if we measure with the balloon now added here, we had some slight, we positioned this slightly wrong here in the beginning when we did it last time, but we can move it down. And also I think we have to move it in terms of, it has to go a little bit to the right as well. And not only that, it has to be like a tiny bit longer. So we're making all these small adjustments all at the same time, and then we can adjust it more if we want. And then we have another one of these beautiful Zorro's marks here, or how we should call them, I don't know. If you have a better name, then you can write it in the description. And of course, as always, if you have any questions or comments or suggestions for further videos and all that, then please go ahead, and I'll, as long as I'm active here on YouTube, all questions will be answered, and all, if I only see them, then I will gladly give my 5 cents worth of, or maybe 2 cents worth of answer. Okay, we do our, this is a lot of fun when many comic book creators sort of come together and contribute. And but always remember this. I think if it's anything, that you have your style, and other artists have their style, and we can watch videos for different reasons. We can watch YouTube videos by people we admire, maybe, who are extremely good illustrators perhaps, or good storytellers, or whatever aspect you want to center on. And we sort of we pick and choose what we want to sort of take away from that discussion or that video. So you may watch an illustrator that has a totally different style than you like, but still there may be something very nice about it anyway. Maybe he has a good method, or maybe his version of Photoshop is better or worse than yours, and then you can sort of think about that. The tools, maybe his pens are super, but maybe he uses it in a style that isn't good for you, but still you might want to check out the pen, or I mean, there are so many aspects. So we can and to sort of to I think the underlying thing I want to say is that we always try to point out, or we try to use the positive aspect of people's videos, or people's blogs, or people's comments in real life. We don't waste any time to complain. No complaining. We use, if you don't like it, just go to another video. There are millions of videos, and that's the beauty of YouTube. There's enough videos for a lifetime, for many lifetimes actually. So it's so fantastic, such an invention, such a medium. I mean, it's just incredible. You can connect with people with extremely narrow interests, and it's searchable, and it's in color, and it's super high definition, and it's just unlimited material for living a happy life. If you watch the right movies, if you watch positive channels. And that's one of the things that we have to gradually learn, that we I think to be happy, I think you have to be associating with otherwise happy people. So I know it may be tempting to tune in on complaining channels like politics and religion and all that, but at least in terms of like politics, it's so much about complaining what other people are doing. So I think that's very wise to stay away from those channels. Unless you have a politician who doesn't care what anyone else does and only has his positive, here's my plan for the future, and now we'll do like this, and now we do like that. And he doesn't talk about what his competitors are doing, or what they actually, it's not about just what the competitors are doing, but it's always about what the competitors are doing wrong. And we don't want to do that. We always want to look to the future, and we want to be happy. And we can only be happy, I say, by being positive. We cannot be happy complaining. So, okay, so now I've sort of marked in another one here on the same layer. I didn't do that yet. We can maybe do that later, but and that seems to be working well in terms of distances, at least. Maybe the form isn't perfect, but it should be a little less. But I have my layer in the behind there that sort of I cannot see perfectly clearly what my new stuff is and what it isn't, but let's see. I should have done this before, but let's just, for fun, let's just see if we can change that. We can just do something we didn't do before. Okay, maybe, yeah, alright, we can take that. And then we make it a little lighter as well, so, okay. Or maybe the red was better. The violet, yeah. Yeah, I think that's better, okay. Just so I can easier see what I'm now doing in blue. And the trick was simply that on this old layer, not the ones that we have done now, but on the old layer in the R1, the refined one, sort of, I selected everything, and then I did my Control U for doing where is it now? It's image, I think, adjustments. U saturation, it's called. U saturation. And when you go in there, you can turn these knobs and you can change the color of whatever you have selected in that layer. So it's an easy thing if you want to paint on top of something else. Okay, so now let's do the last one here. Back to blue, and I'm on the right layer, and now this old one is too much to the left, so I have to move it. But it starts something like that there. It's also pretty thick. It's the thickest one of all. So we have to account for that. The direction is, it goes down like that, a little curved in a convex way. Then we get one of those back strokes there, the Zorro strokes, but then we have another even longer so some kind of wave form. Actually, it's, if you think of it as waves in the ocean, standing up instead of and this goes a little down like that. Okay. And this shape of this last one here is such that it almost looks a little bit like that tool that bricklayers use when they are doing their cement or concrete or whatever it's called. So it has a little like an arrow shape to it, and then the handle is up here, and then you have like a steel shaft that sort of folds twice and then comes out a straight narrow triangle here. So that's just my clumsy description of a shape here, but this angle should be different also. So the angle should go more like this. And then we have to remove. That should come closer to Tintin's shirt as well. But I think that may be fixable by okay, maybe we are pretty well off here. It's just that this stroke has to be thicker. And probably this one as well. A little bit like that, and this probably should be longer here also. Have to adjust. Aha, yes, and this should be thicker, so that sort of takes care of it also. And then this one here. And there should be an up as in quite a degree, like a 10-degree difference here in the very top here. Okay, but maybe this. I think relatively speaking, these lines are now pretty good, but maybe their absolute length needs to be bigger. No, I think actually this line should be a little longer. There, I'll keep that in there, and then we should go up there more, and then it comes down, and then this should be longer down. Okay, I see it now. Or maybe hold on, maybe this I see that this angle is here, it's wrong. Okay, and then it's tipping up there because of that. So it's all, it seems like everything is just a product of a, like a calligraphy pen or something like that. So this is not, of course, something that Hergé was sort of, he didn't paint with his ink like this. I don't think so. But he used a special nib, whether it's on a fountain pen or on a dip pen, and which is why he gets all these angles. And assuming, of course, that it was Hergé that actually finished this work. in terms of the effects. So maybe the effects are actually drawn by someone else. I don't know, because if I remember correctly, I mean, he had someone who did the effects also. But if that person did also some work in this panel, I don't know. But at least we can. At least we know that the style is approved and certified and okayed by Hergé, because he was the sort of like the director anyway. So even if he didn't complete all the lines in this panel, he still had the sort of artistic director kind of role. So he has certainly approved everything here. Okay, so maybe we should leave it at that, and the angle isn't really as I want in this though, so I'm a little stubborn here. I'm going to change the angle a little bit and redo it. Is that better? Oh. Okay. And if we now just clean up this border here perhaps a little, and easier to ink later on if we actually see where the line is supposed to be. Okay, not entirely sure, but it's not too bad. Like that. I think oh yes, I see now. So it's this angle that's off. Okay, it's the end angle that's off. Okay, that's the one. Should be something like that. Okay, and now we're going to cut this out. One at a time, copy, paste. Write 3. Because if you copy instead of cut, then you will, oh let's take the last one instead. If you copy instead of cut, you will put the pasted new layer will go into the same position as the selection is. So the selection is here, and when I paste it, I'm having the new copy precisely over. So when I press V on the keyboard, I will see that the selection has been pasted exactly over the selection, the previous selection. And now I change its name, write 4, and then I go back again and copy the last one here with the lasso tool, which I have L on the keyboard. Pasting it, and this is write 5. Okay, and then I can just delete that whole drawing layer that we have been using for. So now I have all the individual segments on, individual layers on different layers. And as I said, I was going to move it away from, so this, the left point here, the leftmost point on the this blitz arrow, this thunderbolt arrow, should be approximately 1, 2, 3 line weights to the right. So 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I think that's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, something along those lines, and it should start slightly below this curvature here on the this shirt, and the distance to the Tintin shirt should be like that. Maybe out 1 more pixel, 2 more pixels actually, 3 more pixels. I did my okay. So that's that one, and then we should go back to the number 4, right number 4, and that originates slightly exactly at the top of his bottom lip here, and it seems the position seems quite good. Maybe 1 down. But the angle on this stroke could be a little different. So I'm going to change that now. I'm going to go back to my brush, and I'm going to, it's just that this should be slightly different angle here, so it comes down like that, and then we add some blue here on the bottom side. It's almost, it should be a little wavy there, perhaps even more. It should be waving. Maybe it's even longer actually. So I think that's better. And then we'll make this corner here more dark bluish. And this section here also a little more, or blackish or bluish, or it's not black, but the intention of course is to make it black in the last step. Okay, and then this arrow here, sort of this line here, points to a position approximately one line thickness away from Tintin's head here. So I think we can leave it at that. And as far as number 3 goes, the only thing I see here now is that we should make this lower stroke here a little thicker. Like that. And also up here, be a little thicker here. Yep. And we're going down again to 5. Because I noticed here that this angle here is wrong. So we will take this golden opportunity here to fix it. Such a nice thing with the computers and Photoshop and all these Clip Studio Paint and Krita and all these other tools that you may be using. That we have such control that we never had in the olden times, that we now can zoom in on the artwork, and we can, but that of course that's also a danger in terms of that we may focus on the wrong things, or that we sort of get too much into details and we sort of forget. And I think that's probably true for some, that but it depends on which kind of artist you are. If you like a lot of lines, then I think the tendency is that you want to get zoom in and do all the details like that. But I think that the challenge as a comic book artist is to the mantra I'm living by, at least, is to simplify. So the more details you want, the more backgrounds you want, the more shadows you want, the more cross-hatching you want, the longer time it takes. And many times it doesn't make the panel better, but just the opposite. So that's, of course, that's the danger. Okay, so now I think I have a better version. I still want to make this a pixel more here or there. That. Okay, I'll settle with that. And then we just look at the left lines as well, and then we have kept our 2-hour line. Okay, I have to go up in 300 here again. Okay. So so this one has to be, so left one has to be little thicker. Not that line, but this, and the angle here shouldn't be as much less Zorro style on this one. It's more straight down. And we can add a little blue here on this side here. Simultaneously we are erasing a little bit on the underside here, because the angle on this lower stroke is a little, almost like straight in, almost horizontal stroke here. Okay, so that's that, and this one here, Zorro's mark, is pretty good. And then we have this one here, but then I see here that this, okay, we have to left 3. There has to be a indent here to make it more lively. And this should be slightly bent line there. I think that's pretty good. Maybe we can fix it a little more here. Like that. I think that's better feeling. And then we can make that thicker. And then this little is like very little thicker. And then we are erasing away here like that. Okay, that's okay. And then we are on the white, and we can remove a pixel or 2 here. On the right layer, please. Okay, left 4. Like that, and these smaller strokes down here, they should be have a much deeper angle, if I may call it that. So I'm going to change that now. They should go more vertical, and even more than that. So they should lean over to the left on the downstroke. So it's I mean, it reminds me actually these thunderbolts, the style of them. It reminds me of musical notation. So for those of you who have been into that, and how some of these symbols are drawn with 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 the strokes of different thickness. So it reminds me a little bit about that. This sharp sign, for instance, I think they usually do that. If not that, then other symbols they have. But it's beautiful, at least in my eyes, in my world, to combine thicknesses. And I think we see this more and more all the time, that in the beginning of comics there was more like the simple lines with equal thickness. Maybe they had a lot of black in them. I mean, but still there was not this varying thickness so much. But I think that's more popular nowadays, and rightly so. I mean, it's not only the artist. It's also the penciler I'm talking about. I mean, if you're doing everything yourself, you sort of know what you want, but like in the case of Jack Kirby, for instance, I have one of those Marvel Essentials where they reprinted Fantastic Four from the beginning of the 60s. And in the beginning, the line work was such that there wasn't very much difference between the lines in one, on the leg or on the head, or they almost had equal thicknesses. But after a while, when I don't remember his name, but he came like in the 1964, 1965 and onwards there. At the end of the 60s, there was a fantastic inker that sort of really nailed Kirby's art. It just went from good to super good, and so I think the inking and the varied line weight is one of the more important aspects of comics. Okay, so I think in terms of position also here now, I think we can move left 4 down a little bit, because it starts below this collar here, the curvature of the collar, and then it go. But then if it becomes too, feels too big, so I think we have to actually make it smaller. We have to make it smaller and even more. I'm looking back and forth now and comparing the sizes, and I think this is better. And now we can move it up again a little, and now the distance to both, I think the distance works well, both to the left and how much space should we have there. There's also something to be said for a slight adjustment in rotation. Okay, I think that's better. Okay, I think that's pretty good. And then we can, when we come back next time, we may see things with our new eyes, and then we can make some final adjustments before we are inking. But for now, I think we have accomplished quite a lot, and then I will remove those anchor lines, and maybe we should even, just for fun, we should just merge anchor lines are to merged, so we have all of them in one and the same layer, so it becomes easier to turn them on and off. And then we can work on we can make a copy of this layer, and then if there is something small to be done, then we can do that on that copy. Alright, so I think that concludes our video part 11 of this series, and again I'm just reminding everyone that 987 degrees centigrade is a fantastic adventure, and you may want to look out after it in some time. I'll post more videos about that when the time comes. Okay, so that's all for now, and once again, if you have any comments or questions or suggestions or other input, I'll be glad to answer those. So bye bye, and see you in the next part.